Hey, this is Hammer with a 3,000 point battle line between my Tomb Kings and some Bretonnians. So my opponent wanted to play Bretonnia for the first time using a list he put together. And it's kind of funny because I've always wanted to play against Tomb Kings as my Bretonnians. I just think it's a great matchup for them. But here I am playing as the Tomb Kings. So I don't have an overview shot of the board, but going right to deployment on the far right, he's got 3 Peg Knights, 5 Yeomen, 10 Bowmen, and Trebuchet. Towards the center, he's got a minimal sized Grail Relic, 49 Men-at-Arms with a level 1 of Beasts and the prayer icon, 3 Peg Knights, 12 Questing Knights with the Valorous Standard, so it's a banner that lets you take a leadership test on 3d6 and discard the highest. Then on the left, he's got a monster bus of Knights of the Realm with 2 Paladins, one of which is his BSB, and they both have 1-up rerollable armor saves, but aren't very killy in close combat. And he also has a level 4 of Heavens and a level 2 of Beasts, I believe. And he's got his flying Heroic Killing Blow Lord behind the temple. So this is the specialist build with the Heartwood Lance, Tress of Azul, and the Charm Shield. So really high probability for a Heroic Killing Blow in one round. Got 5 more mounted Yeomen, and then 10 more Bowmen and a Trebuchet on the far left. So on my deployment on the far left, I've got a Scream Skull Catapult represented by that empty base. 4 Necropolis Knights, Standard Musician. We've got 20 Bowmen with 2 level 2s of Light. We've got a War Sphinx, Hero Titan, Casket, more towards my center. 4 more Necropolis Knights, Standard Musician. 20 more Bowmen, Standard Musician, with level 4 of Nikara, and my third level 2 of Light. Another Catapult, and then on the far right I have a Bone Giant, and 6 Chariots with Standard Musician and the Banner of Swiftness. So I took the big chariot unit because I thought that the impact hits worked like ogres, where if I have 1 chariot behind the first rank, I get strength 5 impact hits, but turns out if I lose 1 chariot, then I lose the strength 5 impact hits. And I also didn't realize it, but chariots can't make supporting attacks, so I don't think I'll bring this type of unit in the future. So after scouting in Vanguard, I scout some fast cab there in the woods for redirection where I need it, and I put a few behind the building as well. And those are his Vanguard moves on the far right. So going to Tomb Kings turn 1, I actually get to go first for the first time ever in Warhammer. So yeah, on the right I just move my chariots forward towards the center. Yeah, Bone Giant there is just protecting from the Peg Knight flyover. Everything kind of shuffles up, and same here on the left. And that's the overview of the board after Tomb Kings turn 1 movement. My magic phase, I take down 4 Questing Knights with Banishment. Pick off a Peg Knight with Shem's Burning Gaze. And in shooting, one of my catapults blows up and the other one scatters. So going to Brett turn 1, his Peg Knights charge something just to clear out of the way of his Knights of the Realm, who charge my 5-man fast cab unit in the woods. And I set it up so he needed an 11 to make the charge, so I really wasn't worried about it. But he hits it, and as you can see in this picture, that's bad news, because if he rolls high enough for the overrun, he's going to treat it like a normal charge, wheel to maximize, and my War Sphinx will be out of line of sight of the monster bus, and I won't be able to counter. So, the lesson learned here is don't give him the 11. You know, I should have put these guys in the woods so he can't even attempt to charge. I mean, really in this case, if he failed it, I had nothing in position to counter him. So I gave him a low risk, high reward charge, which I shouldn't have done. You could see in his remaining moves, he moved his fast cab forward, His general hides behind the building there. And in the center, everything kind of shuffles up cautiously. And this is the far right of the board. So he conga lined his mounted yeoman, and I think he was trying to get my scorpions to scatter off the board or something like that. So forgot to mention I have 2 scorpions in this list that are entombed. And on the far right, his peg knights jump behind my chariot unit. Again, I think it'd be much better to break this unit up into 2 units of 3 chariots and just act as kind of chaff clearers on the flank. As it stands now, this bulky unit is kind of not doing much. And in his shooting phase, he clips my hero titan with a treb, takes a wound off of him. After close combat, yeah, he crushes through the fast cav, and he makes the overrun into my snakes. So, yeah, taking a chance at that 11 made a big difference for him. So on Tomb King's turn 2, I reposition, as you can see, so I might be able to countercharge that knight unit with my second unit of snakes. Push my War Sphinx forward. I figure he can get a lot of easy points from like the men-at-arms or the Grail Relic. And on the right, reform my bowman to face his peg knights. So I'm investing a lot of points here to protect my Hierophant. I could really use that Bone Giant towards the center to fight his main blocks of knights. But I think that'll be solved when I break my chariots into 2 units of 3 to kind of have that anti-chaff roll. And with my chariots, I just moved them as far forward as possible. So it really was a mistake to go around this building with these chariots. You know, with Bretonnia, I can just put Banner of Swiftness on a unit of Grails. They can march 18, and I can hope to get into meaningful combat. But chariots are just too slow, and yeah, definitely a mistake there. See, I get a Scorpion on the edge of the board, which is nice. So I'll have to eat through some yeomen, but should be able to clean up some points in his back lines. And here's the board after Tomb King's turn 2 movement. Yeah, after close combat, I actually held with my snakes. I remember my opponent saying, "Man, for such a huge bust of knights, they really don't get that many attacks." And I was like, "Yep, welcome to Bretonnia." So, yeah, here's how things look after close combat. So on Brett turn 2, takes his peg knights into the rear of my chariots. Now, I wasn't too worried about this at the time, because I figured I'd be able to reform and grind them out. My chariots have 6 attacks each, so pretty solid. Let's see, in the main combat, his general makes a charge into my snakes, so they're going to get crushed. And his yeomen go into my fast cav as well. In his back lines, his yeoman reformed to block off my Scorpion, and his Grail Relic faces that direction as well. Towards the center, moves his peg knights to block my Necropolis knights from countercharging. And he moves his questing knights right around my War Sphinx charge arc. So it's always the little things that matter. So if I just slightly adjusted the position of that War Sphinx, those questing knights wouldn't have been able to get out of my arc. So always the little things. Magic phase gets harmonic convergence off on the super boss. So he's shooting, drops a rock on my hero titan and almost crushes him. So he's got 1 wound left. And after close combat here, yeah, so I lose a chariot, but again, I think long term I'll be able to stick around here. And after combat with the snakes, his general overruns. I know it looks like he's facing the wrong direction, but he's actually facing towards a catapult an inch away from him. And the yeoman overran as well. So on Tomb King's turn 3, take my Necropolis Knights into his pegs. Move my level 2 Blight with 1 wound left in front of his monster bus, just to try to slow him up a bit. Over here, so my War Sphinx was kind of at max charge range to his men-at-arms. and they were only on a leadership 7, so I figured I could Terra charge them, and if they fail, they only need a 4 to run off the board. So they fail their Terra check and roll a 3 and stay on, and that was horribly disappointing. Let's see, on the far right, my Scorpion goes into his Yeoman. In remaining moves, my second Scorpion comes on the board to threaten his Trebuchet. Magic, get a Time Warp off on my Snakes. And shooting, put all my bow shots into the Yeoman. I want to take down 2. Yeah, my shooting throughout the entire game was pretty bad. So after close combat, I beat the Yeoman and run him down with my Scorpion. And in the combat with the Chariots, yeah, this was not good. I completely whiffed. Haven't done a single wound to him, and he's just crushing my Chariots. So 165 point unit, taking down, I don't know, what is that? Probably 300 points of Chariots. And let's see, I beat the Peg Knights and end up here with my Necropolis Knights. So on Bretonnia turn 3, his Grail Relic charged my Scorpion on the right side of the board. These men-at-arms rallied and reformed into Horde, unfortunately, towards the center. So he decided not to charge his Questing Knights into my Necropolis Knights because I had Time Warp. I was going to strike before him with his great weapons, and I'd probably win that combat. So instead, he reformed his Monster Bus and his Questing Knights such that if I charge one of them next turn, I'm going to be in base contact with the other. So pretty safe move there. So he charged his Yeoman into my Catapult at the bottom and moved his General behind my Casket such that none of my Bone Giants can charge him. So just a view of my lines to the right. These are actually movements I made on Tomb King's turn 3, reforming my Bowman to face him and moving my Bone Giant down to help out because at the time I was confident my Chariots would be fine. And during his magic phase, gets buffed up Amber Spear, goes right through my War Sphinx, does 6 wounds and kills it. So that is a little bit disappointing. And his Grail Relic Peasants beat my Scorpion. So yeah, didn't get a shot at the Trebuchet. So on Tomb King's turn 4, my Bowman going to his Mounted Yeoman. Necropolis Knights going to his buses. I really had no good option here. I don't have the movement to escape, so I got to charge him or I'm going to take a double charge. And at the top, take my Scorpion into his Trebuchet. And remaining moves, park my Bone Giant in front of my Hierophant just to try to protect him. So if his Lord wants to kill my Hierophant, he's got to go through this Giant. You can also notice my Hero Titan is dead because his Treb crushed it last turn. So after close combat, my Bowman killed the Mounted Yeoman. And the grind fest on the right with the Chariot continues. Actually took down a Peg Knight this time, but only have 1 Chariot left, so just trying to hold on to those points. See, my Scorpion kills the Trebuchet. And in the big combat, I'm down to 2 Necropolis Knights, so all I'm hoping to do here is maybe Killing Blows BSB, and yeah, I know I'm going to get crushed there eventually. So on Bretonnia turn 4, his Grove Killing Blow Lord charges my Bone Giant. Let's see, these are the movements in his back lines. Reformed his Bowman to face my Scorpion. And after close combat on the far right, so still grinding it out. I have 1 more Chariot left with 2 wounds remaining. Combat with my Snakes, so I lose another Snake. I still have 1 left, surprisingly. Then in the combat between my Bone Giant and his General,
Monster kill.
Oh yeah, my general gloriously heroic killing blows the bone giant, overruns into his Hierophant, and oh wait, never mind, I'm playing Tomb Kings. So going to Tomb Kings turn 5, I had nothing to charge, so my magic phase, I 2-diced the casket at some bowmen. Killed a bunch, they failed their panic, ran through the trebuchet and off the board, which failed its panic. And before that happened, the Light of Death bounced to his Grail Relic and killed all but 2 wounds of that, and it failed its panic as well. So I definitely like what the casket can do to clean up a back line. Let's see, in this combat, my remaining Necropolis Knight did pop, but before he did, he killing blowed my opponent's BSB, which was a very nice point pickup there. With the points for killing the BSB plus the 100 for killing the BSB. And in this combat with his general, so he had overrun into my Hierophant's unit, and I issued a challenge with a level 2 of light that had 1 wound remaining. And his general whiffed his attacks such that only 1 wound went through and killed my level 2, meaning he got no overkill points. So the combat res he had was just a charge and 1 wound, whereas I had a rank, a banner, and a musician. So actually 1 combat by 1, and
Monster kill.
The glorious heroic killing blow general, run down by skeletons. I love this game. So in Bretonnia turn 5, he charged his big bus of knights into my Hierophant's unit, but failed it. And you can see that either here. And his bowman failed to rally and ended up right in front of his big bus of knights. So on my previous turn, my Scorpion at the top left of the board had charged these guys. They fled, and he failed to rally and ended up here. So really protects me from a turn 6 charge from this big bus, which is nice. And he moves his questing knights outside of them so that he can charge on turn 6. Going to Tomb King's turn 6, so I had no charges. My magic phase, I got off the casket again and killed his trebuchet and the remainder of his Grail Relic. So that casket picked up a good amount of points at the end of the game. And let's see, I reformed my bowman to give him a longer charge and move my Hierophant out of the unit behind them. So, you know, even if he charged me turn 6 and overruns, he can't kill my Hierophant. And after close combat with the Peg Knight, so I'd gotten, I think it was smiting on the chariots, and gave him extra attacks. I regrew 1, and it gave me just enough to beat and run down those Peg Knights. So managed to hold on to this big point investment here. I think this unit was 345 points or so. It was expensive, but at least they survive and the Peg Knights die, finally. So going to Bretonnia turn 6, he makes the charge with his questing knights into my Casket of Souls. Then he moves his level 4 forward to Thunderbolt my Hierophant off the board. But between my 4-up Lookout Sir and 4-up Ward Save, I managed to survive his magic. But his questing knights destroy my casket, and then my opponent remembers that the thing explodes. So everything within 12 inches on a 4+, it hits him and does D6 strength 6 hits. So a Hierophant survives, his questing knights survive, but his level 4 is just within 12 inches of the casket. It hits him, goes off, and kills his level 4. So that's how the game ends. Pretty funny way to end the game. The points actually ended up being a lot closer than I'd originally expected them to be when his big monster bus of knights made that 11-inch charge, needing an 11. So I killed his level 4, his BSB, his paladin, his general, and really it's still a Bretonian victory because all I have left is a unit of chariots. That's pretty expensive, a Hierophant, my Bowman, and a Scorpion, but he still has some pretty significantly sized knight units on the table. So it was a real fun game, really kind of interesting and crazy game. And I think I learned a few things about what I would like to change in my list. Definitely breaking up the chariots into 2 smaller units is one of those. I like what the casket can do to a back line, so definitely learned something about how to use that thing. And the Bone Giant, probably not the most competitive choice. I just like the model. It's like the idea of a Bone Giant. That's one of the reasons I wanted to play Tomb Kings, is to bring out all these monsters, because I don't get to do that at all with Bretonnia. But anyways, I'll bring things in and out of my list as I get things painted up and keep experimenting. Anyways, thanks for watching.